welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm Justin Thin. I'm here with my co-host Matt Sheehan, who is coming to you live from laundry room in Florida.
That's right.
Matt, how are you doing? Thank you for making do, for being resourceful on the go.
You think I was going to miss this for the world? Justin, you're out of your mind. But no, we're doing great. Only slightly sunburned, which if you're as pale as I am, you'll take slightly sunburned any day of the week. But yeah, we'll see how long I last this show. This is a beautiful Airbnb. Shout out to the in-laws. Very nice enough to hook us up. But this laundry room is coming at like 97 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know how long I'm going to last in here. If I just drop dead in the middle of this, I can just trust you'll carry the rest of the show here. You got that?
That would be great content.
It would be amazing.
You know how many views people in Brazil would be watching American podcast or drops dead in the middle of podcast. That would be so cool.
Give me about 16 minutes, and that could be a stark reality here. But hey, until then, I'm excited to talk Spartans, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you doing, by the
way? You know what, Matt?
I almost forgot.
Today you almost forgot. Today would have been better if you forgot, because you know what, Matt? Not good.
Okay, good. All right.
7:45 Eastern time.
Yeah.
I head into work.
That's early. Yeah.
Head into work. No, that's just when I started my drive. I got there at 8:30.
Okay.
Still early in my opinion, but
that's
not
early.
to most people in the workplace.
It's early.
I'm walking in, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Careful. Drive carefully in. Used all my turn signals. Stopped at every stop sign fully. Nice. Walk in. Drive slow in the parking garage. Park. Walk in at my usual pace. Checking the timeline, seeing if anyone has entered the portal and whatnot.
Yeah.
I start walking up the stairs, Matt. And keep in mind, I must lay it out. The stairs are very, very wide.
No elevator over there.
Like 8. It's just to go up one floor. It's to get on a sky bridge to walk from one building to another on campus.
That's a flex. That's still a flex. Yeah.
So the wide bridge, Matt. Like I'm talking about, like 8 people could stand shoulder to shoulder on the steps. I'm on the far right, walking up the stairs. Still, refreshing the timeline, making sure no one's hitting the portal, as we do during basketball season.
Sure.
I hear from behind me, someone yells, "Hey!" Now keep in mind, Matt, twice in like the last month, someone stopped me and they're like, "Hey, are you the guy that covers Michigan State?" So I was like, "Oh, cool. Someone else is finally going to be like, you have some good content." I'm like, finally, third person's going to tell me I have good content. The only 3 people in the last month.
Yeah.
I turn around. The guy goes, "You need to be more careful. Put your phone down when you're walking up the stairs." I would like to know. Listen, all I would like to know. I'm leaving it open to the chat to answer truly, whatever side of this they fall on.
Mm-hmm.
If you see somebody that is walking up the stairs that are wide, where nobody's going to be walking down at the same spot of the stairs that they are. He could see that I was at least 20-something years old because I'm working in corporate America. Do you think that someone has gotten through 25 years of their life and cannot walk up the stairs without causing a catastrophe for others or themselves? Now, if the answer to that is no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is way more dangerous than I'm making it out to be. And I must add, I never walk down hallways, with there's never a corner where I'm just on my phone like some people I see do. I always peek. I walk.
You're a safe guy.
Walking up the stairs, man. Yeah, just your sensical user of the phone of when there are opportunities. Was I wrong to view this as an opportunity where I don't think I would be causing extreme bodily harm to anyone or myself? Am I wrong here, Matt?
No, absolutely not. Because even if you're walking up the stairs and you do bump into someone, it's the person walking down. Like they've got gravity going with them, so they need to be the more careful one. But speaking of bodily harm, like what stopped you just from turning around, just Spartan kicking the guy in the chest like 300 and just sending him to the bottom of a pit of despair? I mean, that's early to just mind other people's business. I gotta say, like that's inexcusable throughout the whole day. But if I get hit with that at 8:30 in the morning, credit to you for not A, kicking him down the stairs, or B, just getting back in your car and just driving home for the day. Like I would have just had enough at that point. Good for you. You're the bigger person here.
Yeah, like to consider myself to be very polite and
Well, don't.
and
Don't.
basically what I did was I heard him out, and then I turned around and I just kept walking. So I thought that alone is kind of rude, more rude than I would like to be, but that was what I did. So I would like to know in the comments, am I in the wrong here? Like, is this equivalent to driving on the highway with your eyes blindfolded? Or yeah, so please let me know in the comments, like, is my sense of reality and how I should be part of society while using a phone like completely skewed? It certainly might be. If you look at my screen time, I would say that would back up the argument that I'm
Yeah.
insane.
23 hours a day. Yeah, that's fine.
If you round down. So if you think that I'm insane, comment. I won't block you.
Yeah, honest
Most
dialogue.
likely.
Real discourse.
And if I'm not insane, then definitely comment. So
okay, there we go.
All right, Matt.
All right,
we
Justin.
won't even go into the 2 hours I spent in a waiting room in the evenings, but
yeah, it's okay.
Well, how was your day, Matt? How was your day? You're going through it. You're probably a tough day for you. Oh no, you're on vacation, Matt. Oh,
well, kind of ish, yeah, yeah. Like working from down here is what we're calling it. But no,
okay.
I'm
so
getting hounded by. I'm not getting hounded by people at 8:30 in the morning. I mean, I'm not doing too bad over here. But you want to put a smile on my face, Justin?
Yes, Matt. Let's do that.
This Saturday is 20 weeks until what?
Until the parlays really start flowing.
That's right.
College football season.
Week 1 of college football season. When the parlays, the financial investments really start hitting. Yeah, man, 20 weeks, which that seems, I don't know. Like, I'm a big round number guy. That seems like an attainable number here. That it's somewhat kind of getting close. Not only are we, as recording, 10 days away from the spring showcase, but football's around the corner here. So I guess we should talk ball because this will be kicking off before we know it.
Yeah, it's going to be just so refreshing, just with a new staff, as it always is for everyone that is a new staff. But especially if you look at where Michigan State was as a program last year in terms of, now I'm not even talking about like everything they went through, but I'm talking about the opportunities left on the table. You know, it was a 4-8 roster, but they should have had the Rutgers win. I would argue they should have had the Iowa win. Right there, you're looking at 6-6. If you win the bowl game, you're at 7-6. There were other games in there too they could have won. So, like, you're looking at this program was already better than they played last year. Now you upgrade at, I would say, at least on paper, at most of the coaching positions, if not all of them. And I think every position room has upgraded so far, except wide receiver, which we'll see. We'll talk about that more in the portal conversation. But you have a quarterback that was arguably the top transfer quarterback in college football. So there's just so much to be excited about in terms of the potential that's there. Finally going to have a tight end that, who knows if he's a high volume guy, but he's highly effective in the red zone, if nothing else. And Michigan State hasn't had that in a long time. Running game ideally should be better just because all the running backs are returning for another year. And you'd think that maybe the offensive line performance creeps up a bit, even though it's harder to improve that overnight. So I just think that there's so many areas where they should improve from last year. And even last year, they weren't as bad as they looked. So the potential is just so exciting for me.
It's right there. And look, I know that you are working on a depth chart piece here, JT. So look, there's obviously a lot of time until kickoff rolls around as far as structuring this roster, making the 2 deep here. But what side of the ball here do you think has more question marks as far as creating this 2 deep on the depth chart? What would you say?
That is a very, very good of a question because
Thanks.
The defensive side of the ball has more needs in terms of quantity because I would probably add depth at defensive end, depth at defensive tackle, a multi-year guy ideally. Maybe depth / someone that has the ability to start, maybe like a Charles Brantley or slightly above baseline, kind of a corner target there.
Right.
So like that's 3 needs right there. But then on offense, really the only need is just receiver, but that's the biggest need because I think they need a starting receiver there. So yeah, I guess you could take it either way, but yeah, that's kind of how it shapes up for me. You can always you can always hope for an offensive tackle. Maybe they can get a depth guy there just because. But other than that, like, yeah, it's starting wide receiver is a huge glaring need, and then some depth pieces on the other side of the ball as well. For me, I think, like I said, like at wide receiver, they're returning Jerron Glover, they're returning Montorie Foster, but they already had those guys last year, so the
Right.
room itself in a vacuum didn't improve. I don't think Trey Mosley's departure is going to hurt much, but I think you do have to go ahead and get somebody that is proven kind of starter material. I really liked what they had in TJ Sheffield a good amount. He didn't have the volume of a number one guy, but what I saw from his highlights was the potential to be a number one guy. He had juice that other guys on the roster, just even at their ceiling, have not shown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of one thing that I look at in terms of that was kind of a loss, but also like the academic side of things, like there's not really anything that can be done about that. But yeah, that's where I'm looking at very hard. But then again, it's not going to be just a ton of starting quality receivers sitting around in the portal in the spring window. That's more of a winter window type of a thing. And they got their top target at that time. And it's just unfortunate how it kind of played out now. What about you, Matt? What are you looking at for the portal?
I mean, yeah, it's hard to not say receiver right at the top, right? But just to flip to the other side of the ball, not just to talk about everything that you just did, but yeah, it's that cornerback position. Yeah. Obviously, this is something that the staff is obviously aware of. They tried to get Tony Grimes. They thought they had Tony Grimes, and then in the end, well, sometimes in life things just don't work. But yeah, it's interesting, especially to see what they're going to do with Dylan Tatum. I mean, this is something Joe Rossi talked about with the media on Tuesday. He was asked about, hey, where do you put guys like Angelo Gross, Dylan Tatum, guys that are kind of in between all these positions? And his answer was, we'll see. But I don't know. We'll just kind of feel the vibe out here as we keep on going into the offseason coming up here. But it has been reported earlier that he is working out with the safeties, Dylan Tatum. That is, so if you're taking him out of the cornerback room, I mean, sure, yeah, you have Chance Rucker, a guy who, as a true freshman, he showed promise. He, learned a lot of lessons along the way in his freshman year. And yes, you do return guys like Chuck Brantley, Marquis Lowry, but got to question the durability, of course, with those guys. So is Tatum eventually just going to switch back to the cornerback room, or do they go back to the Tony Grimes well and they try to get a cornerback in the spring portal window? So, again, it's easier said than done just to find a day one starter in the spring cycle. But, of course, as we saw last year, it does happen. You can find starters. Hopefully they just don't leave Michigan State this time. Hopefully we bring some in. But, yeah, they are available. But, yeah, when it comes to what the high needs are for the portal as we're looking at this depth chart, wide receiver's got to be one of them, and I think cornerback on the other end has got to be the other end. Of course, you're never going to shy away from anyone on the defensive line, specifically defensive end. But again, I just don't know how many of those are going to be out there in the spring cycle, especially just instant impact guys. But Michigan State, they got the young talent there in defensive end, so that's why I'm cornerback receiver.
Right, yeah, and at cornerback, I should mention, like with Tatum playing safety, what they're kind of doing, from my understanding, is all three safeties are playing all three spots. So when I say three, like the nickel safety, or I guess like nickel corner, but like they viewed as box safety. So it's free safety, strong safety, box safety, but like nickel corner. So like they're playing all three of those spots. Mangum's mostly free safety. He's not rotating as much as the other guys, but like Malik Spencer playing down at nickel corner / box safety, and then Tatum playing as the other two deep safety, and then flip-flopping. Whereas Malik Spencer already played that second deep safety, the strong safety next to Jaden last year. So those three guys would some configuration. Well, Jaden would be free safety, but in the other configurations between the other two, those are going to be your three spots there for the most part. And then Chance Rucker's going to have one of the corner spots. So yeah, like those 4 out of the 5 DB spots are pretty much locked down. So then, yeah, for the other one, you're looking at a Charles Brantley or maybe a Marquis Lowry, finally, if he can get healthy for the first time in a couple years. And then I guess one of the younger guys, maybe you can hope for maybe finally you could get one of the young guys, true freshmen, to just come in and play as an underrated kind of kid. I mean, Charles Brantley kind of did that, but really since Josiah Scott, they haven't had some guy just come in from high school. So maybe you can have an Andrew Brinson the fourth sighting early on. I know they thought that as a recruit that he was severely underrated and he's college ready from day one. But then again, you also have some guys like Eddie Pleasant who were here last year, and maybe Kari Crump, who's just quietly stuck around and just kept working. So ideally you'd like a portal guy there though. But yeah, so it's really all those guys fighting just for one spot. And it's not unrealistic to think maybe one of them can stand out and be a B-, C+ kind of a corner. But if you can get that B- corner from the portal, absolutely need to do that. So agreed there for sure.
Needless to say, opportunities are to be had at the cornerback position. I don't think I'm going on too far of a limb saying that. Now, there is one position group on defense, too, that, they have the names, but there's only a limited amount of spots here, and that's linebacker, because we know the Cal Hallidays. We know the Darius Snows. I mean, what's he going to look like coming back from injury? But are either of them even locked into a starting role right now? I mean, it looks like Darius Snow, perhaps not. But, man, I mean, you added guys like Jordan Turner in the offseason. You added a Wayne Matthews, a guy that's really going to help with pass coverage in the linebacker room. And then, hey, it's not like Jordan Hall came back or is currently back right now to be the second guy on a 2 deep. So it's a crowded linebacker room, which is interesting. Like, I don't know how elite it's going to be in the Big Ten, but, like, certainly there's enough talent there to be, like, upper half the Big Ten. So we'll see.
Yeah, very good question. I think the way that I haven't seen them play in practice. I can't really phrase it like that. But I would say based on what I know of how Wayne Matthews played last year and based on what we know of how the Michigan State guys played last year, I would kind of have it whereas Wayne Matthews III is day one starting at the will. He's by far the best coverage linebacker on the roster, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
I know Jordan Hall was fine in that role last year because he had to be, and because, well, frankly, Cal Halliday is not very good in coverage. So you're looking at, by comparison, he was of course going to look good, but he's much better as a between the hashes linebacker. Jordan Hall, very stout against the run. That's kind of more his thing. But yes, I'd have Wayne Matthews as the will. I'd have Jordan Hall as the Sam. And then in the middle, it'd go to the winner of Cal Halliday or Jordan Turner. And I didn't watch – I think I watched maybe 2 full Wisconsin games to get a feel for Jordan Turner, so definitely not all of his reps. I would probably give him the nod over Cal. He's also fairly limited in coverage, significantly limited, I would say. But I think he's even better in terms of being able to guard at least some types of tight ends, some types of slower receiving backs. Whereas Cal, at least last year, there was not many guys that he could cover. And then both are good against the run. Like Cal's very good at fitting the run, but I think Turner's also just as good at fitting the run. So if that side is a wash, you kind of got to tip it to the guy that can cover slightly better, even though it's still not a strength in his game. But yeah, if Darius Snow's healthy, I just hesitate to bring up his name in depth chart conversations because I don't want to put unnecessary expectations on him. I just want in the background him to keep healing, and if pleasantly surprises us, then even better, and we'd be happy to talk about him at that point for sure. But right now, I just don't know if we can count on his health until we know or see otherwise. And at that point, I'd be all for him reclaiming his spot because very good coverage linebacker he was. Definitely when he moved kind of from that thumper spot, he kind of took over Michael Dowell's role there. He was very, very good in space. So hopefully he does make a full recovery.
He was the best tackler on the team, in my opinion. I mean, just in the open space that you're talking about. So, yeah, for him to have his knee basically explode first half of the first game, hopefully we get some iteration of the true Darius Snow back. But if I can just keep the ball rolling here on defense, because this is something that, Joe Rossi talked about on Tuesday, because, hey, your coworker over there, 24/7 Sports, Stephen Brooks, the man, the myth, the legend, he actually asked Joe Rossi about the rush edge position and how that's going to unfold here. And he kind of went through the history of like how he's molded that position, started as just a weak side defensive end and a stand-up rusher. And now he just has it as the rush edge, which he says is a guy that can obviously rush the quarterback, but also drop into pass coverage. He's asking a lot out of this position here. So in years past at Minnesota, this is a guy that just frame alone, 6'5", 250 pounds, something that you would see out of your classic defensive end. So it's not straying away too far away from that. Who plays that position this year? Is it one of the young guys like a Jalen Thompson? Is it a by Jobe, Andrew DePape? Or, hey, Quindarius Dunnigan come on down? Or, how do you just see that rush edge position unfolding? Because you do have some returners, like guys like Avery Dunn, Chris Bogle, but, man, is it maybe, I don't know, is it too much to ask for one of these young, true sophomores to fill a position that intricate, you think? I mean,
I think Jalen Thompson is kind of the guy right there at that spot so far. I can't vouch for that with my own eyes, but it seems like he's been the guy that's played a good amount of reps at that spot. And He's going to have to play a huge role this year anyway, just because there's not really a lot at defensive end in terms of proven guys. There's a lot of young guys, like the guys you've mentioned, the 3 guys from the 2023 class, and then your Avery Dunns of the world, and Ken Talley's also there. And I don't know if if he's at DT or DE this time around, but so you're looking at a lot of bodies. So if nobody has the edge in terms of being the proven guy, why not go with somebody that has a ton of potential and whose body is the most physically ready out of those 3 guys from that class? So we saw a good amount of potential from him at the end of last year too. And sounds like he's been getting a lot of reps at that rush end spot. And then you can go ahead and have a Chris Bogle down lineman that's even better against the run than he is as a pass rusher on the other side. And then you have a pretty varied skill set across that D line. And it sounds like, at least after the first scrimmage, that the defensive line was playing very, very well.
Okay.
So I don't want to just blindly go ahead and say, oh, Michigan State's going to have an elite defensive line. It could be just because the offensive line is still struggling and piecing it together, and Luke Newman hasn't enrolled yet, and Ethan Boyd's kind of been out a bit. I think Ashton Lepo's starting to claim that right tackle spot regardless of Ethan Boyd's status. So that seems to be some very, very promising stuff with a high ceiling guy like that kind of taking that job, it seems like right now. But again, it's early. But yeah, so like the offensive line has a lot of moving pieces, but it seems like the defensive line had a great, great first scrimmage. So we'll find out if that's because of the D-line, which certainly could be, because that interior of the defensive line is going to be as good as you'll see. I know Michigan with Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are going to be at the top of that conference in that spot too, but it's pretty much up there. So Barrow and Harmon are going to be good. I've heard Harmon looks even better than he did last year, which is great to see. You worry about sometimes kids hitting the portal and kind of seeing that Oregon, Ohio State interest and worrying about, are they going to think that they've arrived? Seems like that is not the case here with Derek Harmon. So he looks like he's bound to take another step. And but yeah, that other side, Jalen Thompson or By Joe, one of these guys have to step up, especially if they can't get somebody from the portal. I think Quindarius Dunnigan is as good of a solid rotating defensive end, but I don't know if they're going to give him the rush end duty. So then you're kind of looking at, is he going to be kind of fighting on the other end with Chris Bogle? And I think he's better pass rusher. I think he's going to get more pressure on the quarterback. So wouldn't be surprised if he kind of snags that job in the season, if not earlier. So a lot of options, not a lot of proven answers though. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and like not to just take the mood down here, me Debbie Downer, but because it's been a pretty good offseason for Michigan State, all things considered, by who they got back from the portal, the coaching staff. Like, look, we know it's been pretty positive since the season has ended,
right?
But man, Jobe Wayman just would have been great for that role, right? I mean, like, that was a bummer to see him not come back for another year here at Michigan State, because obviously he played both defensive end and linebacker. That position that we're talking about here, that Joe Rossi's talking about, is kind of in the middle. And when Rossi was hired, like we would talk on this very show here, Justin, I believe. It's like, hey, you know what? That kind of seems like a Jobe Wayman defense that he could thrive in, and then just not back here. But anyway, I'll pick the mood back up.
I agree. I hate to ever criticize someone going ahead and going
chasing
for that next level, and
yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And
selfishly though,
who am I?
That would have made me smile.
Right. Yeah, but I think even unselfish, I think for him it would have been a better decision to have come back, because this role was going to be for him. And I think NIL probably would have been, because I don't believe he did not get an NFL draft combine.
Right.
So if you have the ability to play for a better defensive scheme, and you're not a combine invite guy, and everybody would have told you that he wasn't going to be, it just seemed cut and dry. I thought it really could have helped his stock in his future next year, but what do I know? I'm the same age as him, and no one's ever hired me to be a draft advisor or a scout. So we'll find out, I guess. But
you're just a guy that can't walk upstairs adequately. That's all you want right there. So, okay, we're gonna pick vibes back up, because look, we talked about receiver. You just touched on Ashton Lepo too at right tackle. Yeah, I've been hearing whispers, and I have a hunch that you've been hearing these same whispers too. The tight end room outside of Jack Velling also looking promising. And look, obviously we all have opinions on the Mel Tucker era and everything that unfolded there. There's one thing. I mean, there's a few positives you could take away from that era. Let's not get it twisted. One of them is the tight end recruiting. We might be starting to see it here in a little bit with guys like Brendan Parachek, Michael Masunis, Jack Nickel too. But like, are you hearing the same thing that I am? That like, hey, the guys behind Jack Velling are not just at the Velling level, but like they are catching up rather quickly here.
Yeah, definitely. And you make a good point there. I don't know if they would have used those tight ends after they had developed them. Probably not. But I think the fact that they got some good talent here was absolutely a credit to them. Brendan Parachek I think he's going to be very good. I think there was some technique refinement he needed to do kind of as a blocker, kind of hand positioning and all that. Yeah. I think Brian Wozniak, Coach Woz, he's as good as a person that could teach that. Had some years in the NFL after playing at Wisconsin. Obviously, Ohio-born guy. We highlighted him a ton when the staff was hired as being one of the point recruiters in the Midwest, and he's definitely active finding guys that in the 2025 class don't even have profiles out on the East Coast and offering them and getting after them, and he's been great. But yeah, like right after Jack Velling, you would think that's where Brendan Parachek slides in, and he's a candidate for a breakout season right there. And then you're looking at guys like Masunis and Jack Nickel from the 2022 classes, where Masunis did not have a lot of refinement to his game, but he was kind of a physical specimen a bit. Some even said that he could go ahead and just play right tackle.
Yeah.
If you wanted him to gain like 30 pounds. I think our West Coast guy, I think it was Blair Angulo, but maybe it was Greg Biggins. They were adamant that he needs to play tackle in the next level because that's how good of a blocker he is.
Wow.
And then at the same time, you would go ahead and see his ability to go on a seam route for 30 yards and catch a pass and make guys miss. But he didn't really know what he was doing. He was just that much better of an athlete.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to see that come into form. And it sounds like once again, Jack Nickel is one of the top blockers in that room. Not as fast as Masunis, but I think his hand positioning, the technique, the power, he's able to drive guys that are bigger than him from what I've heard. So he's going to be at least in goal line sets, if not more than that. So, and then there's Tyneil Hopper, who I know he had that injury. I'm not necessarily sure on his status, but again, like if your tight end 2 from last year is like your tight end 3 or maybe 4 this year, maybe 5, I think that means the other guys are developing well, and you got some good options there. So now the next step is just featuring them in the offense, and Brian Lindgren will do that part for sure. So loving the vibes of that room, and definitely a great idea to bring that up. I almost forgot about that.
I mean, it's just like happiness in the tight end room in East Lansing is back for the first time in how long? And that's not to say like it's been horrible since the Josiah Price era, but like that it's been that long since it's been at that level. You know, like I mean, shout out to Matt Sokol, Matt Siebert, like those were solid guys, of course. But wow, it's just to have multiple of them at the same time could bode well. And again, just like you said, this is an offense that likes them some tight end usage. We saw it last year in Corvallis, Jack Velling reeling in 8 touchdowns as a tight end. So yeah, I'm ready to smile.
And I should mention for sure, and I should mention, and this is not a slight on Jack Velling, even though it kind of sets up as that. But if you watch all 8 of his touchdowns, he was wide open on all of them. This guy was not playing like Gronk or some superhuman guy that you're like, well. Sure, Brian Lindgren might have had a lot of production with Jack Velling, but he's a monster. Jack Velling was a monster purely because of the fact that he was being schemed wide open by Brian Lindgren. Now, obviously, he's an athlete. He ran the route sharply and all of that. Not everyone is getting open like that, but this is not a freak of nature, Travis Kelce, George Kittle occurrence here. So it is definitely scheme that is helping these tight ends develop. And it's not that unheard of that you can expect them to maybe find the next Jack Velling right after Jack leaves. So definitely not a fluke what they've done there. And obviously it's also not a fluke because Brian Wozniak put Luke Musgrave in the NFL, 2nd-round pick by the Packers, I believe. I think it was 2nd round, maybe 3rd. But yeah, so he that's 2 guys in a row that are one of the best tight ends in the Pac-12.
Now, do you want to put this football discussion to rest, or do you want to talk about the battle going on at quarterback too right now, or do you want to save that for next week? No, I think that pretty much hits on everything that's hot with the depth chart right now. Yeah,
I would agree.
Luke Musgrave, second round pick, 42nd overall. If that was going to keep anyone up at night.
42nd.
Speaking of night, if you're listening on Thursday right now, hey, there's one man out there who has an outstanding name from Omaha, Frankie Fiddler, transfer wing player. He's coming into East Lansing. Should everything still line up accordingly to the schedule that has been set in the past. But he's on campus. It's down between Michigan State, Nebraska, Creighton, and Wisconsin. He visited the other three schools before this dead period. The dead period ends on Thursday, as you are likely listening to this. And MSU gets the last visit. Now, of course, this is going to be tough. Creighton's NIL is sneaky aggressive. It would floor you how good of an NIL package they have. Nebraska, still the hometown team, and then Wisconsin. Well, what's their issue? What do we got to worry about there? High school teammates with Chucky Hepburn, which, God, what a high school team that had to have been. My God. The state of Nebraska, too, of all places. They were probably clowning teams. So, Michigan State, last call. They get the last visit. You want to get the first one or the last one. That's the old adage, right, Justin? That's what you recruiting people tell us.
Yep.
But still, this is going to be a tough one. Do you think Michigan State and us fans have any reason to, get overexcited about this one? Or should we be in the camp of, let's just assume it's going to be Creighton or Wisconsin, and we'll just get excited if anything happens?
I would say that when this visit was announced, actually, I'll even say 2 days before Monday. Okay, so this visit was announced last Wednesday. Last Monday, I heard they had a Zoom call with Frankie.
Okay.
Did not even bother to watch his highlights, let alone his full game tape, because I kind of knew how when he entered the portal, Omaha kid, I'm like, he's going to play for Fred Hoiberg or he's going to play with Chucky Hepburn. That's it. Yeah. Then Wednesday comes around and I hear, okay, just locked in a visit. And at that point, I wasn't allowed to report it. And Joe Tipton went ahead and did that because the player side told them, and that's how that works. So
okay,
at that point, that day is when I started. I'm like, okay, they got him on a visit. Let me at least watch his full game highlights and all that. Then I was still kind of skeptical. I'm like, all right, they're going to get him on a visit, but they're distant fourth right now. But I will say now at this point, I don't think that Chucky Hepburn angle is holding up as much for Wisconsin. And Wisconsin was the favorite as of about 8-9 days ago. So the original favorite seems to have been knocked down a couple pegs. And that's before he even steps on campus. So that tells me there's a lot of fluidity in this recruitment, which I did not believe was the case a few days ago. Nebraska, it's the home state school, but it's not the hometown school like Creighton is. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska had kind of some buzz of, we could get him and we will also get Chucky to come here and then we'll close the deal as a package deal. It doesn't sound like Chucky's hitting the portal anymore from at least the little bit that I've poked around on that. Okay. Nebraska also seems to not have as much kind of juice in this recruitment as they did a couple weeks ago. So the two teams I thought were out in front with Creighton third at the time seem to now have taken a step down. I wouldn't say they're behind Michigan State, but they were kind of in this air above that they no longer are in. Creighton seems to be firmly ahead of Michigan State still, like they always were. But now that the top two favorites are knocked out, I think it's there for anyone's taking. And sure, Creighton might be ahead of Michigan State today, but like you said, the last visit, I'll take my chances. I don't think Creighton's giving away the kind of silly money they've given in the past, because like you said, they are as powerful in the NIL space as almost anybody.
It's crazy.
I put them ahead of Kentucky when Cal was there, because a lot of schools they have used their cachet of their coach or the brand, and Kentucky and some of these schools have done it. Nick Saban in football used to do that. Alabama wasn't paying much, so you kind of have Creighton there. That Craig McDermott's a good coach. He's a fine coach. Yeah. That's not enough for you to not have to pay. Omaha's a fine state. It's a city. It's not a great state. So Creighton had to be at the top of the market, and they had the donors. So they were throwing silly money for a second. They're like, Baylor Shireman got paid.
Yes.
So I don't get the impression right now that Frankie Fiddler is getting way more than he should. I would say right now you have Michigan State behind Creighton, and everyone else is kind of on the same plane. They got the last visit. I think there's a reason for optimism. again, not even close to a done deal. Probably, like I said, Michigan State's not the favorite, but much different of a vibe for me right now than when this visit was announced, which was already a tick up from the Zoom call the 2 days prior when I didn't even think they'd get a visit. So they keep surprising me on this one. So who am I to stop saying there's no shot eventually?
And I'm going to have you keep talking here. I'm really sorry. I'm just throwing you on the hot seat here. Speaking of two schools, hey, Creighton, Michigan State. How about Iowa State, Michigan State for one, Javon Hadley? Is that still the presumed 2-horse race, or have things gotten so murky that it's anyone's guess right now as to where Hadley's going to be going?
I have dug more on this recruitment than probably any recruitment in the last year in either sport, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I cannot get a good answer on why it hit a snag at Iowa State specifically. What I have heard is, first and foremost, the NIL at Iowa State that he was getting, I think he wanted a little more. It wasn't there for him.
Okay.
And that's fine. Like, that part's not really that debatable. I'm fairly sure that's accurate. What I don't know is what gave him the idea to ask for more. And some will tell you that like Oregon and Eric Musselman now suddenly at USC, transfer U, that those schools are sniffing around and suddenly he has reassessed his value. Others will tell you that no, that there is no new school coming in. So I'm hearing completely opposite things from that angle. I do know that Michigan State is well aware of the situation. They're not asleep at the wheel or anything like that. I would think that they kind of want to see what the Frankie Fiddler visit kind of plays out as. And again, he's announcing Monday morning based on the GOAT Trilly Donovan and his shadow sources. So they should know where they stand on this before they have to maybe play ball with Hadley's new NIL aspirations. But also by then, if the USCs and Oregons of the world don't come in and meet his demands, then you might be looking at a market where Michigan State can actually go ahead and still get him without having to overpay. And he was just wrong on his value for a few days there before he realized that wasn't the case. And all it did was weed out Iowa State almost unnecessarily.
Right.
So we'll find out. We'll find out in a few days how it plays out. But right now, no one is willing to go ahead and say with confidence that there's some mystery third team that caused this snag with ISU. It almost seems like just an issue between him and ISU, and that's it. And there's no third threat yet. But then the others are saying, the West Coast schools, Eric Musselman just got there. He's telling him, hold on, wait a second, let's see what we can do. We'll see what to believe. But right now, I'm very intrigued by what's happening there, and we'll have to keep gathering more information, though, before I can really say anything with confidence.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, because look, when Hadley entered the portal, it was rumored that he was going to go to Iowa State for sure before the graphic was even posted on Twitter. So this is
and he committed to them on his visit. He was a silent commit to Iowa State. When I put in my crystal ball for him to go to Iowa State, it was a done deal. Like everybody in college basketball knew it, and they knew that he had told Iowa State, and then that did not happen.
Look at this. So I know you can't give away specific names. Of course, I don't want to get in trouble or have any blocked phone numbers here. But talk about Fiddler, talk about Hadley. Michigan State's still in discussions with other players right now, or where do they stand on that?
Yeah, and I can say at least one name, like the Trey Townsend report that Tony Paul had of Michigan State being someone that reached out to him. Can't confirm that. There's no visit date set there, but I think that's another case where Michigan State wants to see what happens with Fiddler, and then they go from there. That doesn't necessarily mean Townsend is behind Fiddler on the board, but he entered later, and they're able to go ahead and just use that date offset to get a clearer picture in this kind of order. Beyond that, I don't know if there's anybody they're going to be immediately getting on a visit. I think they have had Zoom calls and stuff like that with several guys. Heard a couple of Zoom calls that they had last week that I haven't heard anything more about. So I don't know if it's just gone quieter or if that interest didn't go anywhere. So we'll see, I guess, with now the dead period ending, maybe more stuff will start to trickle out in terms of visits. But those three guys for sure at the wing spot. And I guess we'll see about center. We'll see.
We go. That's it for Michigan State basketball talk, at least as far as my topics go. But
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts here on just the national championship game. Of course, I mean, if you've missed it, I understand it tipped off at 11:20 p.m. Eastern time, so whatever that happens. But any grand takeaway that you had there? Because I had one that just kind of sounds like I'm just being a player hater, but I'll let you answer it first if you just walked away from that.
No. You first, because you have one.
How, Mickey, and again, okay, before I start, let me just say, I am not saying this because MSU has had a underwhelming stretch of basketball here the last few years, okay? I just want to preface it with that. I'm well aware of the situation. I'm not saying this has changed what Michigan State has done the last few years. Has there ever been a more Mickey of a Mouse era in college basketball than what we've just been through the last few years, though? Like, guys playing until they're 25 years old in college basketball with the COVID year. Our back-to-back National Player of the Year is a genetic anomaly who gets any foul call that he wants on one end and then is able to commit whatever foul he wants on the other end. Like, all this just seems so fake and so fraudulent and so unrecognizable to college basketball to the point where, like, I'm almost glad UConn won because that is ethical basketball. That's basketball the way it should be played. Not just dumping it down to the guy who's 7'5" and he's going to barrel over someone and do a crackback block on the other end. Like, it's just, what have we been doing the last few years, man? Like, can we just get back to actual basketball, actual hoops? Like, I'm just so excited to be 1 year closer to turning the page. We got rid of Zach Edey, and I will say he is a good player. I don't think he's just tall. But, my God, he doesn't need any other, benefits of the doubt from referees that he already has with these genetic gifts that he has. But I digress. But we are 1 year closer to just moving on from the COVID years. And I know that Michigan State has benefited from it. I mean, Malik Hall, we just saw played a 5th year. So, again, I'm not complaining as a Michigan State fan. I'm just complaining as a basketball fan. Like, that was my takeaway just in the middle of the national championship as Edey's going for, 30 points in the first half, just all on, over the left shoulder hook shots. It's like this. Who's this fun for? Who's this fun for? This sucks.
Not me, Matt. I can tell you that. Not me. Not me at all. I agree. Like, I don't think there's any debate. Anything that's happened over the last 3 years doesn't count.
It sucks.
And anyone that tells you it counts is lying to you. It literally doesn't count. Like, college basketball, the last time we had a college basketball season that counted was 2019.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
There's no other discussion or conversation to be had.
I hate to sound like such a miserable person. Like, yeah, I'm watching like this great UConn team win the title, and all I'm thinking about is just how ridiculous the last few years have been. But I mean, Jesus, I don't know why it took me so long until a national title game. But he scores his 12th point in the first half. It's like, this has got to end. This is ridiculous. Yeah. Get this off my television. I'm so sick of watching this. Yeah. So. Oh, whatever. Whatever. Yeah. That was my.
It was good to see UConn win, though. I do agree.
Dude, if Purdue won that game, I would have walked out this door and I would have walked into the ocean. I would have never turned around. Not to be dramatic about it, but like I could only handle so much as a sports fan in 1 year. Like, Michigan winning the national title, like, okay, that put me pretty close to the threshold. The Lions blowing a 17-point lead in the second half to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, now we're getting a little closer. MSU going from top 5 basketball to going out like a dying star in the second round. Like, I was at the brim of what I could handle as a sports fan. Purdue winning the national title would have taken me over the edge here.
Yeah.
So I was glad.
Luckily, there was zero chance of that happening. Like, this was as surefire of a result as you possibly ever could have expected in a title game. Like, I don't want to be mean. Yeah. I don't want to be mean. Yeah. But the entire the microcosm of this game was when Fletcher Lawyer got the ball on the baseline with like 8 seconds left on the shot clock, and 8 seconds later, all that has happened is he has not moved an inch, and he shot the ball off of the side of the backboard.
Tough look.
As Purdue had no answers other than post touches to Edey. Braden Smith, I know he had his 10 points in the first half when I needed him to have under 11 and a half. And then all he did in the second half was hit 2 free throws, even though he airballed the 3 and missed the layup. So he ended with 12 when I did under 11 and a half. I get he had his 10 little points in the first half. And there was no Lance Jones threes coming from a role player. There was no Cam Heidi miracles.
That dunk. Hold on. That I know what you're talking. I know you're talking about 3-pointers, but like, oh my God, That dunk, like I was like, surely he must have
Yeah.
jumped off of someone else's back to get up that high because he cocked that thing.
Yeah.
That was anyway. I said a remark on that.
Yeah. Right. But yeah,
Man.
like that, everything about that played out exactly how I thought it would, and it was great to see to have the right read on a game where it was 1 versus 1 and both teams are the powers. That doesn't often happen. Like you look at college football title games and stuff like that, and you think, oh, like Ohio State, Georgia, like a couple years ago, I didn't think CJ Stroud was going to throw for 7,000 yards and stuff like that, and I thought Michael Penix would play better than he did against Michigan, and it's hard to predict these games where both teams are in that top tier. But this one, it literally read like a game script that you could ask me to write before the game. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah,
I was not as smart as you. I was getting a little nervous, and then Fletcher Lair, he tuned us up. He tuned us Michigan State Spartans up. Let's just get ahead of that right now. I felt good about UConn's chances the first time I saw Fletcher Lair have the basketball in his hands, though, on Monday night. And there was a play, it was either like a second or third touch with the ball, where he tried to drive baseline and ended up punting the ball into the UConn student section. And I texted my buddy saying, he looks like me out there right now. And folks, if you see me play basketball, that's not a compliment whatsoever. It's like this guy looks like he is completely lost and just wants to leave this basketball court as soon as possible. Again, still a good player, but man, the guards on UConn, those guys aren't good. They are elite over there, and they were eating him up. I think it came out after Hurley said something along the lines of like, we were content with Edey scoring 50 points on his own. Yeah. As long as we held everyone else, their collection to under 20. It's possible. And yeah, Braden Smith, he hit that 3-pointer in the first half. I think it was a buzzer beater fadeaway. It's like, that's not sustainable. Like these aren't easy looks. These are not wide open. Like the only 3 they hit in the first half was a prayer. So it just worked out in spades. I mean, so it was a brilliant game plan on Hurley's part. So glad it worked out.
Yeah. When Edey had that 11-point personal run, it did not open up shots for anybody else. And at that moment I knew, and at that moment I knew, all right, they're okay with this. But then, Matt, when that 3 gets hit, and I think they go ahead and they score a mid-range jumper from someone not named Edey on the next possession, then Danny Hurley calls a timeout. I'm like, okay, this 5-0 run from non-Edey players is what they will not stand for.
Not sitting right.
The 11-0 run from Edey, they will take. So this tells me that they're okay with Edey scoring, so I'm not gonna worry about the 11-point run. But if their goal is to take everyone else away, I believe they absolutely will over 40 minutes succeed at that tremendously. Yep. So that's kind of why I wasn't nervous during that run. And yeah, eventually, they looked in the mirror and they remembered who they were. They meaning the non-Zach Edey players on Purdue.
Sure.
And I wasn't I didn't want to be too mean. Like at the end of the day, these are college kids, but here for podcast sake, I will admit I had typed up. I said, I know for sure that I did not just see Caleb First check into the 2024 NCAA Men's National Championship game. The man was on the court for 13 seconds, Matt, and gave up an and one to Donovan Clingan, who for the most part wasn't really doing anything on the low block as a post-up guy. And I'm like, there is no way. I thought I'd see Ethan Morton play 7 minutes before I saw Caleb First play 7 seconds. And the talent deficit is just so huge. And I'm sure Michigan State would have looked similar if they were out there. So it's not like it's not that embarrassing.
That's what I'm saying.
But all I know is
Purdue's a fine team. They were a great team. Right. That national championship runner-up, well-deserved. Final Four, well-deserved, whatever. Yeah. But like, just observing the game, that was men and children out there, which thank God. Again, thank God it was, Justin, because I could only handle so much in a year. I'm a weak, feeble man, Justin. I'm brave enough to say that. I could not handle one more sports thing going wrong in the last 365 days. I couldn't.
Speaking of sports things going wrong, John Calipari's tenure at Kentucky has ended in grand fashion as he runs to take the frozen chicken money from Arkansas. What do you think on this, Matt? For me, I like to laugh at John Calipari. I like to laugh at Kentucky.
Yeah.
I especially don't respect Arkansas very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this situation sits kind of right for me. I think best for everybody. But yeah, I'll go ahead and kind of let
100%. No, I agree.
Okay.
Like it is a clean break for all three parties involved. Just Arkansas as a whole, right there. Like what an electric move for them. Okay, Kentucky. I think John Calipari said this in his farewell video that a new voice needs to enter the program. And I know that's like something that you just type out on an AI and like you just see what a nice cordial way of leaving a school is, but it's kind of right. And then just for Kentucky too. So I think all three parties and. Even Eric Musselman and then Andy Enfield going to SMU. Like everyone in this little story here is coming out on top here. All fan bases involved too. But it's just so weird to see Kentucky basketball coach leaving for Arkansas. Like these rumors start to fly around on Twitter at 11:30 at night. I go to bed and do you ever have a dream where like you wake up and you're like, hold on, wait, that was really weird what happened in the dream, but okay, but it was just a dream. It wasn't real. Like let's just move on with our day. That's how I felt waking up that morning. I was like, I just dreamed that John Calipari was going to Arkansas. And then I opened up my phone, and sure enough, by then it was official that he is going to Arkansas. I was like, well, how does this make sense? And then you sit down on it for like 5 seconds, and they do need a new voice. Calipari needs he needs new scenery of people that actually like him again, because I think that his stay was getting overdone over in Lexington. But who I'm excited to hear from is that we come down here, this part of Florida, year after year, again, with the in-laws. They've known someone down here for like 30 years. She's an older lady, nearing 70, maybe even over 70. Her name's Christine, diehard Kentucky basketball fan. Whenever we meet up, we're always talking Cats. She's been to like every Final Four that's ever happened in the last 30 years. Like she's a diehard basketball fan. Cannot wait to get her thoughts on Monday when we see her for dinner. So we will have a guest on SD4L. It will be Christine down here in Southwest Florida. So make sure we get a third box here on this YouTube show. Oh God, because she was not too fun at Calipari in the later years too. So I'm sure she's got some thoughts to say. Cannot wait. Oh, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I like happy for Arkansas fans that they're gonna have something new, something refreshing to cheer for.
Yeah, but they'll be underwhelmed, right? At all. Yeah, thank you. Right? Like
it's gonna be horrible. What's the $7 million NIL thing is good and fine, Matt, but tell me who are they going to get with that $7 million that Calipari already didn't have at Arkansas? Because the Kentucky brand could have gotten you away with maybe $4 million to get the number one class. The Arkansas brand is here, so the money brings it to here. Like you're gonna be getting the number one class in college basketball, but he can't do anything with it because he doesn't know how to coach basketball. And now you're looking at a spot where you're like, all right, maybe he'll use the portal a little more. He kind of tried that 2 years ago. That didn't work either.
No.
So, like, he just frankly can't coach basketball. And I get that it's a great story that, like, Greg Kampe in Oakland beat him. Yeah. Greg Kampe is not some coaching mastermind. He had a tournament in the last 13 years before this, with all due respect. I know everybody likes him. But, like, what are we doing here? This guy can't coach basketball. If I was Ohio State and Calipari calls in February, I'm telling him to go pound sand too. And that doesn't mean that Arkansas made the wrong choice, but they're not gonna like Jerome Tang. Okay, like I'm not hiring Jerome Tang over John Calipari either. I would like to find out if Calipari is truly finished. However, I am of the opinion that yes, he's most likely finished, even if I would support the concept of finding out if I'm them. But like, no, like if I was Ohio State, I'm honestly rolling with Jake Diebler over Calipari, because if this guy couldn't make a Final Four since who knows when with Kentucky, he's not doing it at Ohio State. He's not doing it at Arkansas. But I think Arkansas is not that great of a job. I believe Jerome Tang said no before they called Calipari and went ahead and got his thoughts on who they should hire. And that's when Calipari and their AD said, wait, why don't we make this happen? And then Tyson Chicken Guy, who was there, was like, Cal, we pursued you when you were at Memphis. Let's go ahead and make this happen. And that's kind of when it all came together, if you believe the reporting from The Athletic's Shams Charania and Kyle Tucker. But that is what they claim. They claim that this came together when they were consulting Cal and who they should hire after Jerome Tang said no. So, again, this is a job that Jerome Tang didn't think was good enough for him that Calipari now took after Ohio State didn't want him in February. So,
Calipari just
I think that all makes sense.
Yeah. Look, I get it. I enjoy being liked as a person. And if, for the last few years, like people that I'm close to, that I have to work in front of every single night for about 32 nights out of the year, start disliking me, and they're very vocal about it, I'll take that chicken money. Yeah, we pick suey, whatever. Sure, like
I agree.
People are going to be fired up to see me come.
Yeah.
Will they be very underwhelmed in about 5 years when you look back and all that we got was 2 Sweet 16s? Like, yeah, probably. But hey, look, a lot of people are happy with this, and like I think that's like kind of just unique and cool. Like SMU's happy, USC is very happy, Arkansas is happy, Kentucky by and large pretty happy, although they're getting a little cranky about their coaching search because Jay Wright isn't coming out of retirement, and which like I don't know. Maybe I just read message boards too much, but like a lot of them are opposed to Scott Drew. It's like you mean the guy that just won the national title a few years ago, a guy that is like always in the top 15 continuously in Waco, Texas. You don't think he could do something good in Lexington? Like, my God, I would love to have Scott Drew over at my program should we have a coaching opening here. So Kentucky fans are just crazy, though, but we've already known that. I've seen it firsthand in the 2015 Final Four. Those guys are lunatics in an endearing way. But, yeah, now we're just seeing it play out yet again.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I lost you. Oh, no.
Right.
Oh, no. I lost you. Completely lost you. What a way to end the show.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
For sure. I think one thing that is interesting to me is the Billy Donovan hype. No. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We are 30 seconds delayed right
now. Okay, well, we can wrap this up here. But my point was that I think the Billy Donovan thing, he was a good coach at Florida. He was solid for a few years there. But like at the end of the day, this all right. Well, what I'll say is Billy Donovan, who's good at Florida, but it's been like 20 years or 10, 15 years since he's been at the college ranks. I don't know how good he would do. If I'm Kentucky, I am taking Scott Drew over Billy Donovan, but I don't think either's a bad choice. So with our Wi-Fi issues down over there in Florida for you, we will wrap this up. Make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe. Comment for the algorithm, comment for the debacle that I talked about in the beginning, and we will see you guys next week. Appreciate you tuning in.